Good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 15th, 2022 Board of Education regular meeting, 7:05 p.m. Sarah, good evening to you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Verizon?
Here.
Mrs. Beck? Here. Mrs. Lala? Here. Mr. Mazzani?
Here.
Mr. Monson?
Here.
Mr. Plaza?
I'm here.
Mr. Trevino?
Here.
Sarah, thank you. A quorum has been established. There's a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed e-learning program, which, if approved, will permit students instruction to receive electronically while students are not physically present in lieu of the district's scheduled emergency days. This program is allowed under Public Act 101-0012. If approved, the e-learning program will be implemented for a 3-year term. I ask everybody to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like the commission statement.
The mission statement of North School District 80 is inspiring educational excellence in a nurturing environment.
Thank you, sir. Celebration of success. Does anybody have anything you'd like to celebrate?
I have two things I would like to state. First, we're very excited that the science and STEAM labs are complete. Maintenance department has turned it over to us. Our science and STEAM teachers are now using both classrooms, so we're very excited about that. And I've been working with the North Schools Foundation to get some equipment in there, so we're excited about that. And then also, another celebration is that our go bags for safety have arrived and will be sent out to the classrooms. We would really like to thank the North Schools Foundation that's wrote a grant, and we're able to secure enough bags for both Lee and Giles School. So we're very excited and very grateful to the North Schools Foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Bianchi, for sharing that. Anyone else?
I have a celebration along those same lines, actually. We had a donation of sanitizer to the school from the Village of Norwich and from NSF. And in fact, NSF has donated sanitizer for every family, every child in the district. So we'll be sending home extra sanitizer for everyone. So thank you, NSF and the Village of Norwich.
Anyone else?
So we were excited at Lee to have 117 students complete the Kindness Week checklist, which required completing 30 acts of kindness. So some of those included creating cards for Valentine's Day for the Senior Center, as well as celebrating and creating some cards for our crossing guards for National Crossing Guard Day, which was February 3rd. So we were really excited to see a whole lot of participation in that.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Move on to our action item. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the agenda as presented and or potentially modified. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to table 15C, the consent agenda, 16C, action items, until after closed session.
Okay, so those two items, in addition to consent item, I'm going to add a third one, double I. I'm going to identify those for the public. 15C, consent item action, identified as considering the approval of kindergarten and preschool tuition and fees. 16C, identified as considering the approval for ESSER 3 grant. And the one I added, double I, is identified as consider the acceptance of letter of resignation for special ed paraprofessional at Giles School. Double I will be tabled, removed from the agenda outright. 15C, 16C, tabled till after close. Any other discussion? Questions or comments on what we just said? Moving on. I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as now modified.
I'll second.
Motion Renzo, second Frank. Roll call, please.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mrs. Blasey?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck? Yes. Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. I'd like to recognize our visitors tonight. Thank you for being here. Correspondence. No correspondence to report. Will you check public participation? Are you indicating we have no public participation? Do we have any?
No.
Moving on. FOIA request. WLS-TV dated January 11, 2022. Requesting access to and/or a copy of documentation of remote learning equipment reported as missing, damaged, broken, stolen, or otherwise unavailable for use. For this request, please provide information including, if available, type of device, school that the device assigned students attend, date of insurance, data, or report of loss, any other relevant information. In addition, please provide, if available, documentation showing the total number of remote learning equipment assigned. For your request number 2, Nathan Milichik, Illinois Retired Teacher Association, dated January 18, 2022, requesting the name and email address of any certified staff that includes teachers, administrators, nurses, counselors, and etc. who are retiring this year. As implemented by this board, you can view these FOIA requests on our website. They are for you to see. Presentation. Student-led Iep meetings. Mr. Dorn.
And I'm actually going to turn this over to Alicia Norgard, our 6th grade co-teacher, and Marley Jennings, our speech and language pathologist from Giles, she works at Giles Family, and they've been working hard on this presentation for, giving our students the skills they need to lead IEP meetings at the school. So it's kind of increasing that advocacy skills. So I'm just going to kind of turn it over to them and let them present.
Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, as David kind of introduced us, I'm Alicia Norgard. I'm a 6th grade special education teacher over at Giles.
And I'm Marley Jennings. I'm a speech pathologist here at Lee and over at Giles as well.
So tonight we're going to talk about student-led IEP meetings that we're hoping to implement next school year for our students who currently hold IEPs at Giles.
So we thought we'd start by talking just a little bit about what an IEP is. We know not everyone is familiar. So IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. The formal definition is that it's a written statement for each student with an identified disability. It's developed, reviewed, and revised in accordance with all state laws. Basically what this means is it's just a written document that lays out all of the students' special education services, the supports they get at school, any specialized instruction as well. Currently in District 80 we have 14 case managers who are in charge of running a yearly IEP meeting. They run this meeting with the students' families and their IEP teams as well, so anyone who works with that particular student. Currently, the state law requires that students begin to attend their IEP meetings at 14 and a half, which is our current practice at District 80 as well. So the first time students are attending their IEP meeting is during their 8th grade transition meeting to Ridgewood.
Okay, so at District 80, we're always looking for new ways to improve upon our current practices and increase student and parent engagement. So back in the 2019-2020 school year, the district adopted this new facilitated IEP process. So we had all of our special education and related service providers trained on the facilitated IEP process, which kind of turned a traditional jargon-heavy meeting where you're kind of paging through a lot of legal documents with the parent into a more parent-friendly conversation. So at our current facilitated IEP process meetings, we have a conversation with the parent and the IEP team where we review the student's strengths, their areas of needs, and then from that list of needs, we go through and identify what supports are required to help that student achieve that we would put in their IEP. So what we are proposing that we implement next school year is our student-led IEP meetings. So we're hoping by including students in their IEP meetings at an earlier age than what is the legal age right now at 14 and a half, that we will increase the student's ability to understand their individual needs and self-advocate for themselves in the classroom when they don't have a member of their IEP team with them.
What is a student-led IEP meeting? So starting next school year, we're hoping that students at Giles, so our 5th through 8th graders, will become more active members of their IEP team. So we would love for students to begin attending their own IEP meetings starting in 5th grade. And then based on their grade level, they'll participate in different portions of that IEP meeting, which we'll kind of discuss in a minute here, what that will look like. And the reason we would love to see this happen is that we want our students to become stronger self-advocates for themselves. We want them to have that increased awareness of their strengths, what they're good at, what their needs are, why they have an IEP, what they're working towards. Because you can't advocate for yourself if you don't know what your needs are and if you don't know what will help you. So we're hoping that by including them in those conversations from an earlier age, they'll get more familiar with talking about it and advocating for themselves. We're also hoping that it helps prepare our 8th graders for those big transition meetings. At their 8th grade transition meetings, they're expected to present their IEP and what they need, what's detailed in their IEP and their strengths. They're expected to present about that at their transition meeting. And it's their first IEP meeting they're attending. They're presenting to a new team as well as their own team. So it's a lot of pressure on them. So we're hoping that by preparing them from a younger age, they'll be more excited for those meetings and more motivated to kind of talk about this with their new Ridgewood team as well.
Okay, so the scope and sequence that we've created, we kind of ease them in 5th and 6th grade. We have the same expectations. We want the student just to be active at the meeting. We want them to be present, a part of the team, and they are giving the introduction. We kind of have a little script that they will say to the team to introduce everybody and to introduce their parents to their IEP team. And then also the student would go through a list of their strengths and areas of needs based on some prompts that we have in the example in a moment. By the time that they're in 7th and 8th grade, we want the student to be present for the whole meeting. We want them to be included in the conversation about the accommodations, and that comes with some additional questions to kind of guide the specifics that they would need in their IEP. And then as Marley's mentioned, in 8th grade, that would also be in addition to the Ridgewood portion of their transition meeting. And if we look through an example, this is kind of what the student would prepare. It's I can give you access in just one moment. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Okay, we might just have to kind of discuss what it is, but it's similar to if you've seen the Giles student goal settings presentations that they've been doing for their fall and now their winter conferences. The students have a slide where they introduce themselves, and then they fill out a slide with their strengths where it's 3 things I'm good at school, 3 things I'm good at outside of school. And for their areas of improvement, they just said here are 3 things that are hard for me at school. And then for accommodations, we ask some questions such as things that my teachers can do to help me in class are, some specific tools or resources that I often use in the classroom are, when I take a test, it helps me learn. If I'm feeling frustrated, it helps me too. And some things that motivate me hard. So it's very student-friendly and an easy way to ease them in to these meetings that they will be expected to participate in the preschool.
And then as far as the timeline for rolling this out, so as we mentioned, we will begin piloting this program with certain students this spring, just to kind of get some feedback on it, figure out what's going well, what do we need to adjust for next year. And then the plan is to fully implement student-led IEP meetings starting next school year at Giles.
Well, thank you very much. There's our presentation.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
And the only thing that I would add to that is that we know that sometimes for some families, the IEP process can be sensitive. And so our case managers will also reach out to parents and families to see where they are as that level of comfort in participating. Thank you so much, Marlene and Alicia.
Administrative report. Interim Superintendent, Mr. Grant.
I think everything I have for tonight is included in the agenda.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Guzik.
Thank you. Same thing, everything that I have tonight is included in the agenda.
Mr. Dorr, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I just want to make more aware of, we did find out that we're also going to be getting additional resources from the Iep ESSER grant that is specific for students with exceptionalities for both our preschool program and our K-8 program. It appears to be about $55,000 for special education, about $5,000 for preschool. And that's the main thing I want to make the board aware of. We have to do a grant, an additional grant for that, which I'm working on, and that's due by March 24th.
Thank you, sir. Building monthly reports, Giles, Mr. Diecki.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to start out with some district stuff so that we don't say the same thing between both Giles and Lee. So I'll start off. Conferences will start this week at both Giles and Lee schools. We're extremely excited. They will be again remote, and they will be from 4 to 8 this Thursday and then next Thursday. So Giles will continue having our student-led conferences. Worked out really well in the fall, and we're excited for the students to continue doing that here in the winter time. And Lee will continue on with their conferences as well, the parent-teacher conference.
Yep, and then both schools, we're working on our school improvement plans. Right now, we're currently in the process of putting together some action plans as a part of that process, and looking forward to sharing those with you soon.
We are, as everyone is aware, we're with the Illinois Special Olympics, and so we're going to start our Respect Week, which is February 28th to March 4th, and that will take place at both Giles and Lee, and we'll be coming out with additional information regarding what that week is going to look like soon.
And then our multi-tier system of support, MTSS, is up and running. We have new groups that have actually been established based on winter map data and FastBridge data, and students needing intervention are receiving additional support in reading and math right now.
And going on to Giles specific, the girls basketball team and scholastic ball teams have begun their seasons. We continue to live stream all home and away games so that families, grandparents, and uncles could watch their family members participate. We're also excited that 5th grade is participating in Battle of the Books, which has started at Giles, and the students are extremely excited and ready to compete. Today we had LitWorks presentation during our 7th and 8th grade ELA blocks, and so Ridgewood High School and Eisenhower Library were at Giles all day today, and our 7th and 8th graders had some ideas, they shared ideas about books that they should be reading to prepare them going into 8th grade, and what books that they should be reading preparing them to go into high school. So we're extremely excited about that. Last week I had the opportunity to meet with Mrs. Tanny from the North Schools Foundation. We discussed the facilities. We discussed the items that the North Schools Foundation will be purchasing for both the science and STEAM labs. And we were also to share how the items that are being purchased, how they're being tied specifically to curriculum needs for 5th through 8th grade. So we're excited about that. And then finally at Giles, the trimester ends on Friday, March 4th. So that's coming up for all of our students. That concludes my report.
Board questions, comments, Mr. Jackie?
Somewhat. It would now be the time, could I ask the administration about the IAR testing? That's coming in April, right?
Yes.
I thought I saw it mentioned somewhere. I just wanted to know what's going to be done to prepare 4th through 8th to take this. Last year they didn't take it, is that right?
They ended up taking it in the fall.
In the fall to make up for the oh yeah.
Correct. So
Okay,
kind of
so-
taking it a second time this year.
So technically, this April resumes state IAR testing as normal, okay?
Correct.
Well, I would just urge that we do everything possible, all prep, whatever we could do to prepare. Some people think that testing like this doesn't indicate what the kids learned or not, but I beg to differ, and I think when people looking at Norwich and use a website like Illinois Report Card, look at different districts, which I've done countless times, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of districts in this state. That's how they size up one district to another. Those who just look at a real estate website and rely on what their 1 to 7 score is it's not accurate, it's short-sighted. So anyone who knows me knows that I take it very, very seriously, and I'm worried about these things. So April's around the corner, and I just hope everything possible is done to prepare these kids.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We have already started discussions about IAR, even down to what the schedule is, what the principals are, the administrative staff working on the schedules. We've actually been looking at the standards that have been covered in the past. We looked at what's been covered in the fall, when we took it in the fall, and because we actually do get a listing of what standards we should be focusing on. So we've already had discussions on that in our standards alignment committee meetings. So thank you for pointing that out, though. It's definitely something that we are focusing on and we're working on currently.
Thanks, Frank.
If I can, I would just add a couple things to that. So, this is an area I know a lot about. Because I helped write the current school accountability model that's in use across the state. So while IAR test results are important, they are not the end-all and be-all. There are a lot of other factors built into the Illinois Balanced Accountability Model that are things other than assessment. Here's what I would stress. Our teachers have done a remarkable job in very, very difficult circumstances. And whatever results we get this year, they're going to have an asterisk next to them forever.
I like that.
And we are going to look at those, and we're going to take the good, and we're going to look at where we maybe didn't do quite so well. But here's what's really important, I think, that we should keep in mind. When I look at a school, I want to look at data over time and not any one year in particular. Because that's a snapshot at that very moment in time. And, you know, my team, teachers have heard me say, when I look over the data over a period of 5 years, I want to see the line going in an upward motion.
A trajectory.
A trajectory. If it's flat over that same period of time, then we're going to have some conversation. So yes, we're going to look at those results, but it's going to have an asterisk next to it. And we're going to celebrate the things that we did well, and I think we did. I think, you know, I've been here over 2 school years. And we know that there's some areas that we just didn't get to. We have to give the test in order to accept federal money. You know, that's been that way forever. But let's keep in mind that, you know, there's going to be a blip on this, and it's going to be this year. And as long as we continue to strive to do the things that Mrs. Busley talked about, we're going to be okay over time.
Thanks, Frank. Dr. Reggio, do you have anything else for Lee?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. And since you actually brought up the school report card, one of the elements that goes into that is also the 5 Essentials survey. And happy to report out that Lee has met the threshold for reporting on that from our parents, our teachers, and our students. So that is great news there. We're also really excited about Battle of the Books, like Mr. Getty had said at Giles. We have the first of 5 battles tomorrow. They had a practice battle that took place last Wednesday. We have over 40 4th graders who are participating in Battle of the Books this year. So some really awesome things that are happening. Also just want to point out that March 4th, we have our next SIP day. And one of the things that we have planned is we have iReady coming in to do a professional development here at Lee focused on differentiated instruction, and specifically in math using the iReady curriculum. And we are excited about that. So I'll just leave it at those 2 things. Thank you.
Thank you. Board, questions or comments? Dr. Rendell? Gentlemen, thank you both. Monthly staffing report, Mrs. Guzzi.
So in today's agenda, you will see a resignation from a para. Hopefully next month we will then be looking at hiring a new one to replace that one. And then we finally have the admin assistant position tonight for Lee School on the agenda. I think that's it. Any questions about?
I do have a question. Did you identify which one is resigning, or the paraprofessional on the agenda?
It is HH, under 15, HH, Alexis Ruiz.
Thank you. All right. Nothing further on mine. Anybody else? Thank you, Mrs. Guzzi. Discipline reports. Mrs. Ewers, Giles.
Giles has 3 suspensions to report in the past month, all 3 in violation of board policy 7:190, 9, and 21. 9, stating engaging in hazing or any kind of bullying or aggressive behavior that does physical or psychological harm to a staff person or another student, or urging other students to engage in such conduct. Prohibited conduct specifically includes, without limitation, any use of violence, intimidation, force, noise, coercion, threats, stalking, harassment, sexual harassment, public humiliation, theft, or destruction of property, retaliation, hazing, bullying using a school computer or a school computer network or other comparable contact. 21 states engaging in any activity on or off campus that interferes with, disrupts, or adversely affects the school environment, school operations, or educational function, including but not limited to conduct that may reasonably be considered to A, be a threat or an intent of intimidation of a staff member, or B, endanger the health or safety of students, staff, or school property.
Board have any questions or comments? Mrs. Aaron's, thank you. This is Mizell, Lee School.
Good evening.
Hi.
Lee does not have any suspensions to report tonight.
Thank you. Board committees, policy development. You'll see on the agenda for your reference. There's some policy updates to approve. Building and grounds.
Just a couple things. I know the STEAM labs were addressed. That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. With a recent snowstorm, I know snow removal was brought up. I did come to find out that after that, the approach and what can be done better was discussed. I have full confidence in that. Part of being a small district with 2 buildings is consequently having 2 employees in building and grounds. So in a situation of a snowstorm where you shovel the front and then do the back, and then it looks like you didn't do the front, that was a factor, I think, too. But we don't have the staff. We'll probably may never have the full staff that warrants 2 full buildings. But I think with the machine that we have and the approach, it's going to be better. I just want to remind everyone knows, while we talk about, we hear the word grants a lot. those mostly are ESSER grants, and they have to be spent on that which is educational. So let's not lose sight of all the building stuff that we have yet to do that's been talked about for about 5 years now. That we're chipping away at, but still have yet to be done. That's it.
Questions, comments from building grounds?
I have a question. So, as we all probably know, there's an expected storm that's going to start out with ice and sleet, and then transition to very wet snow. And that's all going to happen in the next 2 days. So are we confident that we will not have children slipping because it'll be wet, very wet snow and then ice underneath it potentially?
So,
Okay.
I think that's been discussed. Just music and
Lack of manpower, once again, can't really give you a definitive answer on something like that. Like Frank said, if you shovel the front and then you go to the back and then come back to the front and it's full of snow again, you can only two guys, one man with two hands, so.
yeah.
I get it, but this is different because we're gonna have ice and sleet first, so that would be underneath that heavy wet snow. That's the only reason I'm asking.
We have a new machine that should be able to handle just about anything thrown at it.
As far as spreading salt, I'm sure they might like to do that too. We first time.
You guys have a machine.
Anyone else? Frank, thank you for your report. Communications,
No,
finance,
nothing.
negotiations. We're in a negotiating year. Michelle, when is our training in March?
March 16th.
Thank you. Nothing else to report. Education, parent teacher advisory behavioral, nothing to report. Goes right at high. Nobody's met. George Parker.
Nothing to report personally here, but something, as you guys all saw in your agenda, something to propose the consideration of a contract that they have presented, so.
It's in the board book?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, George Parker? Consent agenda. The consent agenda is modified, as previously stated. I'll ask the board to consider the approval of the now modified agenda. Discussion. I need a motion to approve the modified agenda. Consent.
Motion.
Chris, Maria, roll call please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Waddle? Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. Action item. Consider implementation of the mass optional mitigation strategy. Discussions or comments from the board. Ask for a motion to implement the mass optional mitigation strategy.
Motion.
Louis Renzo. Roll call.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Waddle? Yes. Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Motion carries. Ask the board to consider the approval and adoption of the following board policy updates on its second reading. They're all listed for you. If you have any questions, now will be the time. I'm not going to individually go through them. They're also on the agenda that's available to the public. Discussion. Need a motion to approve and adapt the board policies that are mentioned in your board book and also on the agenda.
A motion.
Second.
Motion from that?
Renzo.
Renzo, second by who? Frank, roll call.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Waddle? Yes. Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next action item listed on the agenda is being tabled until after closed session. Moving on, consider the approval of the 2022 through 2023 school calendar. Discussion, comments. Motion to approve, we're asking for a motion to approve the 2022-2023 school calendar.
Motion.
Maria, Chris, roll call.
Mrs. Waddle? Yes. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. That motion carries. Consider the approval of the contract amendment with Norwich Park District for enrichment program. Discussion or comments? Any motion to approve the contract amendment with Norwich Park District for the enrichment program?
Second.
Frank, Chris, roll call.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Motion carries. Consider the approval of the bid from Start Abatement for the summer 2022 district asbestos abatement project at both Giles and Lee School.
All right,
Discussion over.
so just to clarify for you, we had two bids. Pat Rossi and his team did a great job of getting us to this point, by the way. Two bids. So we had base bids for the removal of the asbestos, and we also took alternate bids for two separate, smaller projects that it made sense to Pat and to our consultant to do while they're there, and they're doing the containment and the air quality checking as well. So we are recommending the low bid of Huser Abatement of Franklin Park. With the alternate bids, the bid for Giles School is $60,900. The total bid for Lee School is $45,000. So the total amount for that project is $105,900. That's our recommendation, that you accept a low bid from Huser Abatement of Franklin Park. And then I do have a second action item relative to this project after you approve this recommendation.
Questions or comments for Mr. Grant? I'll ask for a motion to approve the bid from Start Abatement for the summer 2022 district asbestos abatement project at both Giles and Lee schools. Specifically, Giles School, $60,500, Lee School, $45,000 even. Total, $105,900.
Motion.
Second.
Frank, Molly, roll call.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Yep.
Motion carries.
And the second item we'd like you to approve tonight is the quote for consulting fees for Camplin Environmental Services Incorporated in the amount of $26,000.
Any discussion or comments, Mr. Grant?
Just to remind, that was enabled us to even know what's the scope of this particular asbestos project and who to hire and what the specs are. And I met the company myself, Lou, so I know all about it.
Okay, with that being said, I'll ask for a motion to approve the additional consulting fees for Camplin Environmental Services Incorporated in the amount of $26,000.
Motion.
Second.
Molly, Frank, roll call.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Consider the approval of the West 40 application for alternative learning opportunities. Discussion or comments?
I have one question. So, once we approve this, we're able to move to the next step in that process with West 40?
Correct. So West 40 was approved by the Illinois State Board of Education at the beginning of this year to open up a remote school for students who are medically fragile needs, or it added social emotional disorders. So we are looking at approving the contract to place one of our students in that program.
That was my question. How many students? Just one.
Chris?
That's it, yeah, I'm sorry.
Anyone else on the board? Okay, ask for motion to approve the West 40 application for alternative learning opportunities.
Motion.
Second.
Chris, Frank, roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. Ask the board to consider the approval of the request from the superintendent to begin working on the fiscal year 2023 school district budget. Discussion or comments?
It's a little known requirement, the board should direct or approve a request from the superintendent to begin working on the next year's fiscal budget. Typically, February is the month that we do this, so I wanted to explain it to you. Next year in February, I have suggested to Mrs. Busick that this be a consent agenda item, so it really isn't for now.
Mr. Graham, thank you. Any questions? Ask for a motion to approve the request from the superintendent to begin working on the fiscal year 2023 school district budget.
Motion.
Second.
Molly, Chris, roll call.
Mrs. Beck? Yes. Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Motion carries. Ask the board to consider the approval of the request to pay all district bills and payroll expenses during the months of June, July, and August 2022.
So this is similar to the request to develop the budget, besides being a blueprint of how we spend our money, is actually authority and approval to spend money. So typically, the budget's not formally adopted until the end of September. And so in order to properly spend money on bills and payroll, we just ask you to give us that authority for the months of June, July, and August. If by chance you approve your budget in August, certainly we wouldn't meet then, but you would be doing that. And you'll see those bills also for review and approval. This is just really kind of a belt and suspenders approach to doing the budget correctly.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Graham. Ask for a motion to approve the request to pay all district bills and payroll expenses during the months of June, July, and August 2023.
Motion.
Second.
Molly, Chris, roll call.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Yep.
Mr. Fabrizio?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes.
Motion carries. Discussion items. Start over Mr. Graham, Mrs. Guzik.
So the first discussion item is the review of options regarding the Lee Elementary traffic study. You have in your packet a copy of a memo from Mrs. Guzik to you. The first part of the memo talks about a follow-up meeting that she participated in last week with the Village of Norwich. You see there is some additional work that they're going to be looking into doing for us. What I wanted to draw your attention to this evening, again, is the information that we shared with you last month regarding putting in additional parking spaces in the green space on the north end of our campus here at Lee. In that memo from Mrs. Guzik, she has summarized for you the estimated cost to provide an additional 12 to 14 spots at $130,000 to $160,000. A second option was to add 2 additional lanes of parking, which would add an additional 35 parking spots at an estimated cost of between $210,000 and $231,000. And then there was a third option, which would add 2 additional lanes of parking. And that spot, if you recall, would run next to Lawrence Avenue. It would go the opposite way of the way our current lot is laid out. That would add an additional 31 parking spots for an estimated cost of $260,000 to $280,000. I don't know that Michelle or I feel strongly one way or the other. We wanted to bring this to you and see if you wanted us to move forward with this. I got asked the question, do we have the money? If you tell us that this is a priority, then we will have the money. It will probably come at the expense of something else. I don't know what that would be at this point in time. But this is, our attempt to kind of close the loop on the traffic study. And this is one tangible way we can show people that we're interested in at least dealing with the parking issues that were brought up. The traffic flow is still under study, and I don't think we have any definitive answers on that just yet.
I think they're great ideas, but I think I'd like to know what's going to be taken away from in order to make this happen. Right?
Truly a valuable, important question. And I don't know how to answer that truthfully.
Right.
We've been monitoring the budget, Pat's monitoring our expenditures for the capital projects and the other things that we're doing. Some of those things have come in under what we budgeted or what we thought they would come in, so we could repurpose some of those dollars. You know, until we get a firm bid, we won't know exactly how much we'll need. But the problem is, we gotta go to we gotta go through the process to get a firm bid. This is really an eyeball project on the part of our architect. Some of the preliminary things, soil, drainage, that our architect was initially concerned with. He has indicated to us, Michelle, make sure I say this correctly, that things they look better than he maybe anticipated they would, in terms of the compactness of the soil and not needing any additional drainage work put in.
Yes, and the village, when we met with the village, they were in agreement with that also. We can look at some of the bond, because we were able, since they reopened the maintenance grant, and we were able to put some chiller money into the maintenance grant. There is some money there. But we'd have to see the final numbers first, and then look at our 5-year plan for B&G.
And from what I understand, and Pat, maybe you've heard, my understanding is there'll be another round of maintenance grants for this next fiscal year. So that would be another opportunity for us to leverage $50,000 that maybe we could put toward those chillers, same thing we did with this year's maintenance grant. So that would free up some of our bond proceeds as well.
One thing I wonder though, we do need more parking. And anything we did, if we were to proceed with anything, just 12 or 15 would be nothing, wouldn't be worth it. But aside from the parking lot, and when you think of that and the cost, I do often think of what's the real thing that's more upsetting? Is it the cluster blank that happens during pickup? Because that sometimes seems more of a traffic issue. But we know there's not much we can do because we're totally immersed in residential. And we were kind of told that by the consultant. Getting more parking would be good because it would please some of the local residents, and they deserve that relief, you know? I'm not always sure that just more parking is going to cure it. It's not by any means.
Can I, is it on the low end of the list of things that we need to get done around here? Right, I mean, don't get me wrong, the park is great now, but there's so many more things that we can fix that would longevity. I don't know.
I mean, when part of the issue with pickup is how people are picking up, not like parking, you're putting your car on blinkers or your hazard
Turning it around.
The stuff that's done is just.
Have we gone to the chief of police to ask for officers to come out? Because
We have and they have.
They've been outside, I mean, they've been the last few days, right? I mean, but as far as the lot, you can park back.
I
in the
personally
space
don't
now.
consider coming once a week. And when the officer is there, I do see an improvement, but it has to be consistent, not once a week, twice a week. Or just driving around.
Somebody's gonna be hit by that.
Part of it is, and I agree with you, part of it is we're subject to their availability and maybe on calls at that time.
Correct, but I do know other school districts, Park Ridge, Niles, have an officer, specific officer to sit out there. Doesn't Union Ridge also, there is an officer sitting out there all the time. I'm not understanding why we can't get an officer to sit out every day. I mean,
It's within
Are we
reason,
bringing this
definitely
up?
within reason to have.
it is. Every school district does have it. But
And where you're at.
coming out once a week is not, and you will see a difference when that officer comes. You do see a difference. But coming out once a week, no. Or just coming through the whole roundabout, that's not acceptable.
Roughly, roughly how many spots are we short in our lot today? Staff?
You may have an idea.
If you think about the whole building, Lee has about 65 staff members, the Park District, 10, 15 people on any given time. So I kind of always think of the number 80 We have 42 spots in the lot currently right now. We are exploring, and the village is exploring, a couple of options of opening up some parking across the street from Lee. That would be staff parking only. They're looking at their ordinance on that. And then if you go south of Lee, they're looking at that section down there, opening up a couple of spots. That'll probably total 8 spots, 9 spots the most is what they're.
Is the old playground being used for kids?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Currently, right now in the winter,
Yeah.
Lee is parking in the whole playground because of the weather.
Right, yeah, I thought that'd be, yeah, okay.
But that playground is used
I
by
didn't
the park
know.
district by us. Yeah.
I thought it was,
So if you look at that, you're pretty close if you're looking at one of the options that brings in, 35 parking spaces.
do we know how many streets are resident only around the building?
I believe it's only Giddings.
I just think
Leland is not.
we could really use this money in other places in curriculum.
Have a question? It's for B and G, Pat Rossi.
Yeah,
Grim. Typically, when should a bid like this be done? What kind of timetable?
Well, I'll let Pat answer, but the sooner you go to bid in the spring, the better off we are. If we wait, we risk not getting it done, or contractors bidding whatever because they don't really want to do the work.
March 7th, 5:30 to 9:30, there was a strategic planning meeting. I think this topic should come up at that meeting. I don't know if that's too far out from here. That's my thought. Yes, Pat.
Real quick, before we get any farther in this, MWRD has to have all final say in all parking and drainage stuff, and their process could be 12 to 18 months. So in order to even get to MWRD, we have to have a set of plans that are ready to go out to bid. So this is not something that's going to happen within the next couple of years. It's going to be, got to approve prints if you want to do it. Got to do the prints, soil samples, all that stuff, to figure out the plan. Then we apply for MWRD. Then they come out with a drainage study. They may tell you need to add drainage, and they tell you have to add retainage, whatever. Then you have to redo the specifications. With that added, then finally go out to bid. So it's a pretty long and drawn out process.
So for me, with that being said, we can discuss it in further March the 7th. On the level of work, the priority is. Okay. Moving on. Personal fees? Thanks, Pat.
I do have this for that, so. We are proposing that we leave curriculum fees the same in 22-23 as they were in 21-22. Which, if you recall, we did a 20% reduction last year for curriculum fees in 21-22. So we would be looking at, please. You can see it in your, reconnect. So we're looking at, for first grade and second grade, 208, third grade, fourth grade, 213. If a student is receiving speech services only, $80, and then at 5th or 8th grade, 208 for 5th and 6th, 213, then for 7th and 8th, band staying the same at 212, and athletic staying the same at 132. Any questions about these?
Yeah, what's the projected enrollment from first to 8th grade?
For first to 8th grade?
Yeah.
So from kindergarten to 8th grade, it's 1070, so 970.
We're projecting on pre-kindergarten.
Right. Little under, little above. This is just a discussion item.
age always been? Yeah, okay.
This is a preschool child who has an IEP for students.
So we will bring it back to you
Next month?
next month for approval.
So I thought it would be a good time to update the board on our preschool program here at Lee Schools. We haven't really talked about preschool in a bit of time. Early childhood, the time where we're preparing students for primary school, but also we're really focusing on the whole child, their social emotional needs, their cognitive needs, their physical needs when they're 3 and 4 years old. So for the board, here's a little history of preschool in District 80. When we were part of LASIK, we housed the LASIK preschool for special education services it was an early childhood classroom through LASIK. Then in 1819 and 1920, we were no longer, if you recall, District 80 pulled out of LASIK, we were no longer part of that. However, we had to continue to offer special education preschool to our students with exceptionalities. In 2021, we began our own blended preschool. So this was a preschool of students with exceptionalities and typical developing peers. And we started collecting tuition for the half-day program at $2,600 for a half-day. The enrollment was small because of COVID. You know, we had a lot of parents who signed up back in March when COVID wasn't known as it is now today, and then we had some people that were pulling out because of the uncertainty of if we'd be in school or not. In 21-22, we added a second classroom, so this year we now have 48 students and 2 teachers. We are using the creative curriculum, which is a research-based curriculum program with learning opportunities around the whole child, that social emotional piece, the cognitive piece, and the academic. Our foundation, we're covering literacy and math and science and technology and arts and social studies. We have opportunities for gross motor play, where the students go outside and play, sometimes structured, sometimes choice opportunities, depending on the weather. We're either outside or inside for those. And we do have Second Step that is supported by our social worker who works with the students in our preschool program, which is our social emotional curriculum. Currently, 48 students. We have 2 licensed teachers, 2 licensed paraprofessionals, 30 general education students. These are students who are paying tuition for our program, and 18 students with IEPs. And I state academic IEPs, as a speech-only IEP does not qualify for free tuition. So we have 30 paying students. Just want to remind everyone about the Preschool for All grant. This slide I shared with you a couple of years ago. District 80 applied for the Preschool for All grant. There are many districts around us, including Union Ridge and Penoyer, that have the Preschool for All grant. 95 applicants that applied for it. 82 scored 60 or above, which means that they were approved for the grant. The grant, that of the people that were approved, those 60 were approved, that would come out to about $32 million. However, the state only put $23 million towards it. So when it got to allocating money to districts that were qualified, we didn't get any money in that. Last year, they did not reopen the Preschool for All grant for anyone to apply. We haven't heard anything yet from the governor on what's going on with it for next year. But I know this comes up quite often, that people ask us why do other districts have this and we don't. So just in general, benefits of preschool, allowing kids to have time to play, to be learning some of those social skills, their social emotional skills. Sometimes it's the first time they've been away from a mom or a dad or grandma or grandpa, it's the first time they've ever been away. So they're learning how to cope with that and learning how to be independent. Certainly academic opportunities and language acquisition. Have students talking with other students, experiencing other students, and just picking up on that language in that rich language environment. Our benefits of District 80 marketing program is to build a solid foundation for lifelong learning for our own Norwich families. These are our families that will be with us in many cases from kindergarten through 8th grade. So we'd like to start forming those relationships early and have a high expectations for our preschoolers as they move up into being ready for kindergarten. The future of preschool in Norwich District 80, we have some opportunities to look at expanding the program. Currently, right now, as I stated, we have 2 classrooms available that have 2 morning, 2 afternoon programs. We'd like to continue to build a robust program for District 80, and we want to explore a possibility of moving the program into the old Learning Center section of Lee School to expand the program, possibly looking at ESSER funds for that, and site and construction funds. This is something that we wanted to start to talk about. We just want to start to have conversations, have STR look at the space, and see what would that take to move the preschool program over to that area of the old Learning Center in order for us to expand the program, in order for us to bring some other opportunities for that outside space with the students, look at possibly a playground going out there that we can share with the Norwich Park Preschool. And we've had conversations with Norwich Park Preschool. We're not taking people from them or anything like that. Quite frankly, they would like us to continue to grow our preschool program, and they would like to really focus on that after school piece. The area that enrichment program that you approved the amendment to their contract on this evening. You know, early childhood is all about play. And we want to be able to have the students have a place to play, have space to play, and engage in the world around them. And that's it. Any questions?
Pretty simple one. In your knowledge of who you know, because you talked to other districts, I need to know of other districts who apply for the grant. If they're only awarding a small portion, it becomes pretty obvious that they're awarding to the districts that are the most needy.
Correct. One of the things, quite frankly, that hurts us on that is they do look at where is childcare available. So that is part of the point system, and it's available in our building, in the Norwich Park District. So there's certainly not a childcare desert. But they did run out of money with COVID. They haven't refunded that. You know, you always hear the governor in his speech talking about fully funding Head Start, early childhood. These are the programs that we're speaking about.
Well, I can't say when bringing preschool into the district was brought up a couple of years ago. It was a new idea because we knew we had Norwich and it just wasn't done. But like I said, I look at other districts, their websites and stuff like that. One of the first things you see is they really try to throw chunks out at you that they have these new programs. So it's like, it's really starting to become prominent with a lot of districts, especially affluent districts, that they have an in-building preschool leading right into its kindergarten, right into its elementary grades. So it's not, it wasn't a coincidence that when you brought it up 2 years ago, it was valid, that it's a very important thing.
I have a question for you. I asked you this in our agenda meeting, I'm going to ask you again so the board can hear. I was recently asked a question by someone who has a son in preschool. 3 and 4-year-old preschoolers, are they mixed in the classroom? And if so, why?
Correct, they are mixed in the classroom.
Can you just explain that to everybody?
There's a couple of reasons for it. One reason is peer role models, so that students can see sometimes an older student that has language acquisition, that has stronger control of coping skills and to be able to have good peer role models. Also, the program is very individualized and differentiates to the students' needs. So when they're all in a mixed group, they're able to meet all of their different needs because they're all very different. A 5-year-old can be very different or very much the same as a 4-year-old. So they're really differentiating on each child's needs in that program. Actually, we went back and forth with this last year, I'm gonna be honest with you. And we tried it for the first time this year. I think we're really happy with the results.
And just refresh your memory, please. The preschool, being that there's a fee to it, is in District 80 residents only?
Correct, District 80 only.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next one. Someone from
Summer school?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
sorry.
So tonight we are bringing up a discussion item of starting to work on ESY, which is extended school year. That is for students who require extended school year based on their IEP and summer school. Last year, District 80 had a summer school program that was 80 for 80 and 80%. So we would like to continue that, and I'll explain. That was District 80. The cost of the program was $80, and the program was offset by ESSER funds. And families who attended at least 80% of the time, actually on the last day of school, walked out with their envelope back that they had paid. So their check, or whatever that they gave us, we literally handed back to them. We had a small percentage of people that did not receive their $80 back. But I will say that for people that knew from the beginning, like I know I'm going on vacation for a week, but I still want to pay the $80 for my student to attend, for my child to attend 10 of the days instead of 15 of the days. It was a very successful program. It was run here at Lee. It was from 8th grade all the way to 1st grade. We had 137 students who were enrolled. Our teachers staffed it and our paraprofessionals, and it was about $36,000. We have budgeted $50,000 in our ESSER grant to continue that, so we would like to start recruiting our teachers, start working on curriculum, start having those conversations, and then have the board approve that next month. I'm very excited to offer this opportunity to our families who were with us during COVID. So we want to give back, use our ESSER dollars to give back to our families.
Board. Michelle, thank you. Transportation.
I just want to make you aware that we will be having conversations with our transportation provider about their costs for next year, and we hope to be able to bring to you next month an action item to approve their costs for next year. We have a 3-year agreement with them, so this is just part of the normal process, but we'd like to get that taken care of if they're ready to do that. We've been told to anticipate a double-digit percentage increase in that contract. Costs are really accelerating pretty quickly, so just wanted to make you aware that if you have any questions, let me know.
I have a question, sorry. So you said it's a 3-year contract and we revisit it every year for the next year. Is there a...
To establish the cost of the contract.
Is there a maximum percent that could go up in that contract?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, board?
We have, Michelle, you correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have a lot of companies who want to bid for the transportation that we need. So we have to, I think, be a little bit careful that we don't put too many limiting factors to give them an excuse not to bid for it.
I was just curious,
Yes. No, it's a good
for
question.
us to limit. Thank you.
And then the Krojanowski School for Polish Culture, same kind of deal. We want to bring to you hopefully next month an updated contract for next year. They have been using Giles for their Saturday school. From what we understand, things are going very well. They're meeting the terms of our agreement very well. And he has indicated he doesn't see any reason not to continue. They would like to continue, so we would like to bring this to you next month if possible. Those are discussion items.
Anything? Board comments in general? Yes, sir.
Have we decided yet what we're going to be doing for Kindness Day?
With the Kindness Day in April?
Yes.
We're still working on it with our committees, coming up with plans. We're trying to get through Respect Week, and then we're gonna focus on that Kindness Day.
Okay.
Real quick question about the Polish school. I forgot. Are they providing their own cleaning or?
No, we are, citywide is coming in.
Okay.
That's where
Just
we're
factor
looking
that
at a 1.4% increase to cover the cleaning cost increase in the contract.
Anyone else? Closed session. Ask the board to consider a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss the employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal, specific employees, collective negotiating matters, and review of closed session minutes. Discussion questions. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss the employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, collective negotiating matters, and review of closed session minutes. Motion. Chris, Frank, roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Trubizio?
Yes.
Mrs. Blatman?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Bonanno?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck? Yes.
Motion carries. Note the time, 8:17. Closed session begins 8:30. We're back in open session at 10:18 p.m. As mentioned earlier, so agenda item 15C, which is identified under consent from earlier, consider the approval of kindergarten and preschool tuition and fees. That item will be tabled until next month's meeting. Does anybody on the board have any issue with that or questions? All right, so that one's tabled until next month. 16D, that was tabled until after close. We're going to address that now. And that'll become an action item. 16D, I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the ESSER 3 grant. Any discussion or questions? I need a motion to approve the ESSER 3 grant.
A motion.
Benzo Frank. Roll call, Sarah.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Trubizio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonanno?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Personnel action items. I ask the board to consider the reemployment of building and district administrators. Mr. Bob Yecki, Giles Principal. Dr. Sean Riviola, Lead Principal. Mrs. Christine Earens, Giles Assistant Principal. Mrs. Sarah Mizell, Lead Assistant Principal. Mr. David Dorr, District Director of Special Education. Mr. John Joe, District Director of Technology. Discussion and questions? I'll ask for a motion to approve the reemployment of building and district administrators. Mr. Bob Yacki, Giles Principal. Dr. Sean Riviola, Lead Principal. Mrs. Christine Earens, Giles Assistant Principal. Mrs. Sarah Mizell, Lead Assistant Principal. Mr. David Dorr, District Director of Special Education. Mr. John Joe, District Director of Technology. Lou, Maria. Say roll call.
Mrs. Anna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Trubizio?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, you can all exhale now.
I'd ask the board to consider the approval of employment. Betty, Michelle, can you remember his last name?
I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
I just want to pronounce it as correctly.
Sean, anything?
I can give it a go.
Yeah, just try.
Okay.
You have it spelled correctly.
Thank you, sir.
Betty Sabano, Administrative Assistant at Lee School. Thank you, Sarah.
I'll motion.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Discussion then?
You got it.
No, not a problem. Now I'll ask for a motion for the employment of Betty Revelar Sabalo, Administrative Assistant at Lee School. Now will be the time. Asking for a motion.
No motion.
Okay, second. Renzo and Frank. Roll call, please.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mr. Trevizio?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Plaza?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawler?
Motion carries. I ask the board to consider the approval of the employment of Karina Huerta, after-school tutor at Lee School. Discussion? Ask for a motion to approve the employment of Karina Huerta, after-school tutor at Lee School.
Motion.
Second.
Frank Renzo.
Mr. Trevizio?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mrs. Plaza?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawler?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Consider the approval of employment of Monica Chiska, after-school tutor at Lee School. Discussion? Thank you. I need a motion to approve the employment of Monica Chiska, after-school tutor at Lee School. Louis Maria. Roll call.
Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawler? Yes. Mr. Trevizio?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Plaza?
Yes. Motion carried. Consider the approval of employment of Kelly T.
Parashevich.
Sarah Shevitz, after-school tutor at Lee School. Discussion, questions? I need a motion to approve the employment of Kelly Sarah Shevitz, after-school tutor at Lee School.
Second.
Maria, Chris, roll call, sir?
Mrs. Lawler? Yes. Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Plaza?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mr. Trevizio?
Yes.
Motion,
Go ahead.
motion carries. Any board comments?
Yes, I'm sorry. I want to make a comment and a question. So I know PTA does many activities throughout the year, and obviously with the pandemic, a lot of those have been canceled. For instance, daddy-daughter dance for one of them. How do those conversations, what I'm asking is, we'd like to do what we can to maybe bring some of those back. And obviously with the pandemic, there are certain things we can and can't do, but summer activities where it's outdoor, like have we ever had any conversations with PTA? Where are we at on some of those? Are there other avenues we can look at so we're not missing out on some opportunities? And being a father myself, and having young daughters, that I want to, many fathers out there as well, if we can look at other opportunities, we can bring some of these back during these times, maybe outdoor activities.
Well, I don't think we made a decision about daddy-daughter dance yet, but I can refer to Dr. Raviola. He was in the PTA meeting.
Yeah.
We discussed.
That did come up, and, I had brought that up because I think that's something that we need to have some ongoing discussions about. But I think your point about potentially looking into other options and avenues in which we can hold those types of events, maybe some things outdoors or things like that could also be other options that we can look into and talk to the PTA about some things in mind.
Appreciate
I
that.
think there's an interest on both sides to continue them.
Right.
I know we're trying to continue them, even the mother-son dodgeball.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Berard. Mr. Durham, any comments, sir?
All right, so I don't want to belabor the meeting, I really appreciate your time, but when we ask you to approve the mitigation strategy of going to mask optional, I really had intended to ask you for some guidance on what happens if the appellate court overturns the lower court ruling tomorrow or Thursday. So, if they overturn it, theoretically, we go back to the way things were prior to the lower court ruling at 5 o'clock on February 4th. Is that what you want us to do, or do you want us to look at a different direction or go a different direction?
What are our options in regards to, have we spoken to our attorneys regarding what our options are?
No, direct answer is no. I have not spoken to our attorneys. In the webinars that I listened to a week ago Sunday, the general consensus was if the appellate court overturns George Grishow's decision, then essentially they're saying the governor does have the authority to implement executive orders, and ISB and IDPH do have the authority to promulgate emergency rules to deal with the executive order. So in essence, we would return to pre-circuit court judge decision until or unless the governor changes his mind about all things relative to masking, and or it's appealed to the Illinois Supreme Court, which if it goes to the Illinois Supreme Court, they're not on a similar time frame as the appellate court. They deal with it whenever, and whenever is undefined. So I know if that particular decision comes down, I know that we're going to be inundated with all kinds of questions. What does that mean? Are we going back to masking as a mitigation strategy? Are we going to put in place the other two strategies that the circuit court judge addressed in her ruling? And what's going to happen if I, as a parent, decide that my child, if we go back to masking, what happens if my child does not, if I choose not to send them to school with a mask on? So I just want to get a sense of where you're at in the event that that goes that way. I have no inside baseball. I have no idea what direction this is going to go.
Well, based off the vote amongst the board members, obviously our main focus and our vision is to go mask optional, right? And if we have that option still available after Thursday or tomorrow's ruling, I, as a single person here, would like to continue going mask optional if that can happen without any legal consequences if we do decide that. But my recommendation, or whatever we decide as a board, is administrators to be prepared of that plan. So once that ruling does go out, that email is sent ready to go, just so all parents are aware of what our plan is, because we don't want to get in a situation where it's unknown and we have kids coming in and with or without, and leaves confusion for parents. So that's just my opinion. If we have that option, I say we stick to that until legally we can.
I'm not an attorney. I think anything other than the appellate court overturning that decision gives you that flexibility. My concern is if the appellate court just comes back and says the circuit court judge was totally wrong, the governor does have the authority to issue executive orders and so on and so forth, and in essence puts us back into February 4th at 4:40 p.m. instead of 4:45 p.m.
It's my personal opinion, we stay the course regardless of that decision. I don't think that decision is going to be made at that point in time, but it's pure speculation at this point. However, I don't believe we should even be discussing about that too mandatory. Regardless, That's my opinion. We'll have to come to a consensus on that sooner or later.
My opinion is if the ruling is upheld, we keep what we have in place. If it's overruled, I think this board needs time to process the ruling. And I think we should reconvene and meet again and discuss what options there could be. Whether we stay the course, whether we don't stay the course, but I think we cross that bridge when we get to it. And that, I mean, that's the best answer I can give, that's my opinion. But if it gets overturned, I don't think we need to immediately react within the first 5 minutes of that. Am I off on that?
School day.
I mean, here, what I'm saying is, hypothetically, if it got overturned, does that mean we could come out with something 10 minutes later?
We know that this is gonna go away fairly quickly. It's already got a timeline for everybody but the school. It's only a matter of time for the school also. Are we gonna play hopscotch? Are we gonna jump back and forth in and out? This could be a matter of months, this could not happen.
The point is, if we are gonna do that, I don't think it needs to be done within the first 5 or 10 minutes. I think, you know, like, I think the board needs time to process what ruling comes out, and,
With legal counsel.
with legal counsel and with administrators, and with the input of the community as well. That's,
My concern, I hear you. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to hopefully say what you've heard me say before. My concern is if the decision is overturned, how much liability are you willing to assume in the interim? That's my number one concern. How much liability is out there? How much are you willing to assume? It's a big unknown.
One of the, as we talk about Tuesday's meeting in public comments section, one of the common denominators is what we've heard from multiple people say, I'm not an attorney, nor am I, nor is anyone here that I know of. So can we start those conversations with our attorney if it does get overturned? What does that mean for the district if we want, what are our options? Because once again, if this comes out on Thursday, the unknown Friday is going to be hanging over our heads. And if there is legal consequences, then we need to know that prior to that decision so we can make that decision, unless we just say, if it does get overturned, what do we do Friday? Because there's going to be parents who might still send their kids without masks. And what does that mean for a district with our legal consequences? So can we, my question is, can we ask our attorneys?
Sure, we can ask. We can ask. This whole thing could go so many different ways. It's what I've tried to explain a little while ago. It's not just a binary decision from what I learned this afternoon. It could be nuanced. The lower court judge's ruling could be sliced and diced. The appellate court could say, this part's fine, that part's not fine, you can do this, you can't do that. They could turn it over altogether. They could uphold it altogether. We don't know. I'm asking specifically about if it's overturned in total, and the decision is we go back to the way things were prior to 4:45 or 4:50, whatever it was, 5 o'clock on February 4th. I have no problem contacting the attorney. I just want to, I totally agree. We need to be ready on Friday. And I need to tell you that I am absolutely not available to you on Thursday of this week. So, Michelle and I can prepare as best we can, and if the decision comes down Thursday, I will be doing a heavy snow dance Thursday afternoon, so that there is no school on Friday. And I can get back and join you and we can figure it out, give it a little more time. But I know that if it comes down on Thursday, we're gonna have to be ready with something, and I would prefer to do it with some guidance from you rather than us being out there trying to make a decision on our own.
Well, I'd like to give my opinion on the guidance once I hear what the ruling is. You know, I don't want to speculate what it's gonna be, what it's not gonna be. If it's this, then I would do this, or, you know, so for me personally, when the ruling comes out, then I'll be a little bit more prepared once we have the facts of the case ruled out. And, in the meantime, we can contact the attorneys and get some guidance from them as if it goes this way or that way, this is what we recommend to do. But until then, I need to hear what the ruling is. I understand we need to be prepared for Friday, but I can't sit here and say what I would do one way or the other unless I know what kind of ruling it is. I'm not ready for that. And I could be the minority, so please speak up.
I mean, I think if we all voted mask optional from the beginning, and if it allows us to do it, we continue. But I understand, it's hard to answer something if we don't know if we can legally continue to do that, if it completely gets overturned. So it's a hard question to give direct. My direction would be mask optional. But at the same time, you can say, well, technically if it gets overturned, you cannot do that. So then eliminates our.
And let's be clear, that is the direction of all 7 board members on the board. It was mask optional unless something changed. Now, the ruling that comes out, if it's upheld or overturned, it changes the game, but we have to discuss as a board how we want to move forward. And I'm not prepared to discuss that until somebody tells me this is the ruling. I know you want to get ahead of it. I think getting ahead of it is calling our council, getting some advice. The advice may be, well, let's see what the ruling is, right? So if they want to wait and see what the ruling is, as do I don't know what they're going to say. But please, when you find out what they say and what the recommendation is, if you can send the board in full, an email, you know, whether it's tomorrow morning or whether, you know, whatever that is, if we can know, and then we can have some discussions that way. Any board members have any thoughts on the email that we received, please get them to me. I'll then reach out to Ralph and Michelle. If you're not available, I'll get to Michelle. Right? And that's how I think we should play it. If anybody thinks otherwise, please speak your mind. No.
I think it just has to be clear to, if we do reach out to our attorneys, that our goal is to go mask optional, so they're going into it knowing.
This board has made it clear that it's mask optional is the route we'd like to go and the route we want to continue to go. That's been made clear. I think, right? I think that's been made clear.
So why are we waiting for this ruling to come out to decide if we're gonna do something else?
Because I'd like to see what the ruling is. I'd like to see what the judge rules.
Well, hypothetically, let's say yes, they do overturn it, right? That's what Ralph just wants to know, what are we gonna do there? In my opinion, it's just my opinion. We decided on this back in August, we got interrupted. Our interruption's been removed. We're back to what we wanted to be in August. Now what was removed might be put back into place, but it was removed on a certain specific ground that's controversial, and there's a process that wasn't being followed. When do we decide that we're going to defy this, and we're not going to be the only school board to have to make this decision? I don't think it's going to be up to the governor, even if they do get it overturned, with all these other school districts going optional as well. But personally, one person on this board, I think we give the direction that we keep going.
I got it. I get it. And we'll do the best that we can. And look, the biggest issue for me is the liability piece. So I'm just going to say, I'm not willing to jeopardize my personal assets if you go against an overturned decision. You will have to direct me by board vote. I will recommend you, if this happens, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I want you to understand, I'm protecting me. I will recommend you follow the law, and if you choose not to, you're gonna have to direct me to disobey the law, and it's gonna be recorded in the minutes that way. Because that's the protection that I will need in order to continue in this position. Please do not take that as a threat, okay? Please do not take that as a threat.
Let's continue this when the law makes its ruling.
We can do that.
I'm talking to legal, can you ask legal, if we indeed vote yes to go against the mandate, do I open myself up for suit? Because that's not gonna happen. I'd like to know.
So I think it's healthier to have the discussions when the ruling comes out and when the community's here. This is a sensitive topic. I do not want the community to think that this discussion is taking place because nobody's here. Okay? Because, let's leave it at that.
Okay.
So these discussions need to continue when there's a room full of people, and we can hear how the community feels, when we know what the ruling actually is, when we hear some advice from our attorneys, then I'd be prepared to give a more accurate feel of where I'm at. It's clear my vote was to go maskless, optional, and the rest of the board, and we're going to keep it like that until we hear the ruling. That's it. I have nothing else to say. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. I'm not prepared to go one way or the other until I hear a judge's ruling in a court of law, until I hear our attorneys that we pay and we retain for this district, until we reconvene with the community and the rest of the board. That's it. Anyone else? That is it. I need a motion to adjourn at 10:43. Louis, Chris, all in favor? Aye. There is no nay. The meeting is adjourned.